All right. All right, guys. So this is gonna be a fun day. Kind of neat stuff we get to learn about. So we're learning about relationships. We've done this a little bit when you did the AI stuff, right? Where you built those diagrams. And if you remember, we were connecting primary keys between tables so we could link them together, right? Primary key to the other table's foreign key. So that's the big concept today, and how all those things work together.
So we're doing the sides relationship in the server.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We're gonna be starting right here with this well, sorry, with Django ORM associations.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to
All
make
right.
sure I had the slides up on the right page.
Yep.
The full stack curriculum ones.
Yep.
Cool.
100%. Yeah, that's these right here. Um,
Thank you.
mhm. All right. So before I get started, I'm going to go over here. I did update the GitHub repository, guys. So there's a lot going on in there now. We have a whole new project that I've already kind of started for us. It's called Relationship Project. We're going to be working in today. It has its own DB, so you see that here. And I moved those cheat sheets over here to this guide section. I made a guide section for us. And I've added two sheets into it. So we had the regex, and then I added this ORM query sheet and this Django and DRF request to response sheet. And I'll go over those two sheets here. Um, so once I will start with a little bit of review, but after we get into that, we do have all of our wonderful learning objectives in here. I kind of went ham on this today, so I apologize. This is kind of long. Um, Why do I even have that in there? That is my own notes. Um, Graph here. Sorry about All right. So this is what we're doing today. We're gonna be running a container, blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna talk about relationships. We're gonna be able to differentiate between three relationship fields, explain relationships at the SQL level, configure relationship behaviors onto our models. We'll be able to transverse relationships in the ORM. So that's what we do inside of Django. We'll be able to manage related records inside of the Django admin. We're going to be able to serialize the data, apply relationships, scaffold. We're going to scaffold an app under a single responsibility app principle, which I've done some of that for you already. We'll work on some validators. We're validated at every level. We'll test our model constraints, implement many associations, manage many-to-many as a set, serialize across the relationship, and persist and reload data with fixtures, which we've done already before. All right, and there's some command references down here for some of the stuff you might need that we might do today, and then some prior knowledge. All right, cool. So to get started, I want to do a little bit of review, as I said, and we're going to be looking at this request response guide to Django. This is very similar, real quick, to what we did in TL Draw. Um, Sorry, that's not TL Draw. This is TL Draw. Very similar to this idea, this concept, but this is just going to be explained a little bit more thoroughly in this graphic here. All right. So what you're going to see here is the path of the request. All right. So the path from the request to the response. So remember, there's some front end or some other application trying to contact our API, right? So that would be like our React application or somebody else's, right? They want to talk to our application. So they're going to send us a request. And that might look something like you see below here, right? They're going to send a post request to API/v1/Pokemon. We don't really have that API/v1 in there yet, but that's a standard way we do things. And you see they're sending a request to Pikachu to create a Pikachu with the electric and level 25. He has a description. Um, he is caught and he has some moves. And we'll be talking about moves. I have them in here. We'll be creating moves today. Then we have URL routing. So this client sends a request. It goes through to this URL router. We'll be talking about this afternoon a little bit, and we'll get into more of it tomorrow. but it hits the URL router, and that essentially says, okay, well, we need to tell you where to go. We're going to have these view sets, and we will route you to from you said to go to API/v1/Pokemon, and we're going to say, hey, look, we're going to give you a view set, an API view here, and it's going to give us all that information and kind of contain all that for us. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. I don't want to get into that too hard right now. Um, so it sends it over to the view. The view can dispatch all the different methods of get, post, put, patch, or delete. Okay, so that's where that will come into play. Is this in this API view, which we'll teach you tomorrow. Once it hits that, then it will go ahead and it'll hit our serializer. So the serializer is the part, remember, that's going to transform all our data into JSON data. Okay, so this thing will figure out what it needs to do. It will call the serializer, which will invalidate and transform the input into a JSON for us, right? And that had all came through from the database. So our validators live here on this on the serialization step. And then that all comes out of the database, right? That was our database that we have with the ORM that also talks to our SQL, right? Our actual database. And then we're ready to give out our response. So now that we have all this done, our response will be sent out, and it will be our serialized validated response. Okay, so that's kind of how this is tracking in the real world. Once again, the journey is down here step by step, written a little bit differently. Client request, URL routing, view, serializer, database response. So this is the layering that we're seeing going on in this application. We've built out 4, 5, and 6. And, or I guess we haven't done 6. We've done 4 and 5 so far. All right, and this just kind of goes over a little bit more about our serializers, how they work, our model validators, custom serializers, and then some more information here. So this is just good for you to have. I just want you to really understand this flow that we're working through. Request to the router, to the view, to the serializer, to the database, and then to the response. Okay. Everybody kind of okay with this is the plan for the attack going forward? Have any questions on it?
My only question is where can I get that chart? I'm trying to find it.
It's in guides inside of the GitHub repo.
And guys, okay, thanks.
Mhm. So that's that. And then since we don't talk about this too much in this class, we don't have a lot of time. I wanted to put together this query guide for you guys. So you saw me a lot of times we're doing something like Pokemon.objects at all, and that gives me all the Pokemon. And I keep saying, hey, look, this is what this means in SQL. This is a whole cheat sheet of how to figure out how to do this. So this is essentially our SQL cheat sheet for the ORM. All right. So the way it's set up here, I have some example data so you guys, so it kind of makes sense what we're looking at here. We have the Pokemon, we have Pokemon moves, and we have a move app. All right, so this is a join table. This is our Pokemon table. This is the moves. There are moves that belong to the Pokemon. This is a many-to-many relationship. There's some basic things here. It says to query API, start with the manager. So we need to use objects. So it's the table.objects. Use.all to get everything. You can filter with .filter. You can exclude with .exclude, and you can get one with .get. You can chain methods, and you can use values and .value lists for specific columns. And if you just go down this, I'm not going to talk through all of these, but the idea of reading this chart is, hey, look, get all Pokemon. Okay, well, in my Django ORM, that is Pokemon.objects.all. If I want to think about that in SQL, it is select star from Pokemon, and it would return in Django, it returns a query set of Pokemon. Get all moves is the same idea, but this one is working on the moves table, so it's select all from the moves app move, and it also returns a query. If I want to get a match, filter will give me matches, so I can say I want the Pokemon objects filtered where the Pokemon is equal to fire. Pokemon type equals fire, and that's the same thing as saying select star from Pokemon where Pokemon type equals fire. All right, and they'll also give us a query set of Pokemon. You can chain them together with a comma. So you can do 2 things inside of it. And that's the same thing as doing something with it, chaining things together in the where clause with an and. Get by primary key. This is pretty normal to do. So Pokemon objects.get, we do PK equals 1, because that's our primary key is identified with a PK. And in SQL, that would be like where ID is equal to 1. You can order by, so you can do it with order by. This negative level says by the level, and the negative says do it descending. You can count, so Pokemon objects that count, so that would be the same as select count as underscore count from Pokemon. It's really just select count star from Pokemon, but it's fine. Yeah, so that's kind of what this is, guys. Um, then down here are some of the stuff that we're going to be going over today with talking about dealing with many-to-many relationships, and it shows you kind of how to work through some of those. But I'll leave that in the notes for you guys to use as a reference file. Does anybody have a question on how this file works and how to kind of read it? Okay, hopefully it'll be useful to you guys. Hopefully both those will be useful to you guys. Cool. If you can't tell, I'm a big person. I like charts and graphs and stuff. I don't like a bunch of written down stuff. I want everything in outline form. So I'm trying to do that for you guys. All right. Cool. So let's come over here. We're going to work through our slide deck real quick, and then we'll start doing some stuff. So Django and the ORM. So we can have those associations. I know we've talked about them before, so we can talk about these in this case. So we're going to be talking about a passenger and an airline and having baggage and that kind of stuff. So in this scenario, we have a passenger, which you see on the right, and we have a passport on the left. Well, the relationship between passport and a passenger should be 1-to-1, right? Everybody's going to only have one passport. They're not going to have multiple passports. They're only going to have one passport. So that is a 1-to-1 relationship. And stop me if you have questions on why these relationships are what they are, guys. So the next one is we're going to have our passenger, and he has baggage. Well, he can have multiple bags, right? Very rarely do you just take one bag. Well, maybe nowadays when they cost a fortune to take. But back in the day, we used to always carry around 3 or 4 bags when we went to the airport. So he can have many bags to one passenger. So that would be a many-to-one relationship. All right. Then we could have our flights. So we could have multiple flights, and the same passenger could take multiple flights, right? And a flight has many passengers, right? So a plane can have a whole bunch of passengers, and a passenger can take a lot of different flights. You guys feel that relationship? That's a many to many relationship. Okay. And that's a little bit harder to think about, I feel like. That's a many to many. So those are our 3 types of relationships. Many to one, 1-to-1, and many to many. All right. So, what kind of relationship do you want to be in, right? Which one? 1-to-one, many to many, one to many, many to many? All right. And many to one and one to many, they're just inverses of each other, right? But there you go. So what kind of relationship do you want to be in? That's what we're going to be asking our tables today. All right. So if we're going to write this kind of stuff out in Django ORM, it would look something like this if we were doing it for our tables and stools, if you remember our tables and stools from lecture yesterday. So in that lecture, we had an example similar to this. So we had a table. It came with one and only one stool, and it could have multiple chairs. And that is what a dining set would be. So in here we have a dining set. We set a name for a char field. We set a color as a char field, and that's the only relationships on our dining set that we see on this, like written in here. Now there's more that exists, but that's all we're noticing on there. Then we have this stool. We gave it a length and we gave it a width. We don't really care about those for now. But we gave it a 1-to-1 field with dining set and gave it a related name as stool. And we said on delete cascade. So that's a lot to digest. So dining set would be the dining set that the stool belongs to. So that's what we're trying to say here. So if we come in and have our stool and we look at the dining set, we should get back the dining set that the stool belongs to, what part it is, right? Because there's probably 5,000 different dining sets. And what we're saying in here is that it's a one-to-one relationship. So there's one stool inside of any dining set. Okay. That is the rule that we are placing on it within the way we're writing our database. And then we say related name equals stool. So that's kind of weird. What does that mean? So what that essentially means is we're actually putting a stool onto our dining set that refers back to the stool that belongs to it. So that's what related name is. Related name is the name on the object you are related to. Okay. So if I have a dining set, if I have an instance of dining set called dining one, I could do dining one dot stool, and it would give me back the stool and all that stool information of that one stool. Then we say on delete cascade. Has anybody heard that term yet? Have we talked about that all in class or anything? Nobody's talked about this? Knows what this is? So this is interesting. What's up, Simon?
I think I remember going through that when we were doing the OOP, trying to figure something out, and I saw that. Doesn't that mean that if you delete the dining room table because it has a relation with dining, or sorry, dining set, if you delete dining set because on Cascade, it will find anything related to it and delete that as well, which means it would delete the stool class?
Perfect explanation, Simon. That is exactly what it's doing. Does everybody catch that? So the idea is if we were to delete the dining set that stool belonged to, now we have a stool all alone. He has no dining set. He has no home. We call him an orphan because he has no home. That's the term we use, orphan. So when you say on delete, that says, hey, look, when the parents get when this relationship disappears, I want to cascade the delete down into this property as well. And I want to now delete the stool that belonged to that dining set. Okay. Really good job, Simon. Thank you. All right, so that is what the stool is doing in its one-to-many relation, or sorry, one-to-one relationship. Now we can come over here and look at chairs, and we notice we do have many chairs belonging to one dining set, right? So that is a one-to-many relationship. The way we did this one is like so. All right, so we said models.foreign key. So this is saying this is going to refer to something. We're going to say that foreign key is going to be the dining set. And then once again, on delete, we need to cascade. So that's the same concept. And now the related name is chair. And that's also the same concept as before. So now I can go to my dining set or dining one dot chair, and I will get all the chairs back that belong to the dining set. Okay, so that's setting up that one-to-many relationship. Then for the last one here, we have many-to-many. And what this is going to say is this models.many-to-many field dining set. And that's it. That's all we had to put. We didn't need to worry about cascading. We don't need to worry about a related name. We are good to go here. So many-to-many. And we'll show this more in detail later, obviously. We got a bunch of examples, so don't worry if this doesn't all make sense yet. Um, and what this will actually do, if you remember when we usually do many relationships, we have some sort of join table, right? So this is going to make a join table for us in the background when we use it like this. Just a caveat here, I do not recommend using it like this. I recommend you set up a one-to-many and a many-to-one relationship and do it separately and build your own join table in practice, because it generally works better that way. Where's my little draw tooler? I want to turn it off. Oh, you went all the way over here, buddy. All right. Sorry, guys. All right, so that's what it is. So that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to be building out this relationship, but with this idea, with these passengers, passports, and flights and luggage. All right. So we're going to be building that out. So I'm going to go over here to draw a SQL, and we're going to build out our database so we can take a nice visual approach and look at it like that. All right. So I will start by creating a table, and I'm going to start with, my passenger table because it's kind of what everything is revolving around. So we'll start with passenger, and we will give him an ID and a name. We're going to keep all the properties of this stuff just dead simple. We're only focusing today on relationships, okay? Just to be clear. All right, so we'll just give our passenger a name, and that will be a varchar. And we'll put varchar 50. All right, so there we go. We got a varchar. And we got passenger. Now we're going to have another table. All right, this table will be our luggage. All right, we're going to have the ID, and then we'll have the weight of the package. All right, weight will be, we'll just leave that as a big N for now. That's fine. All right, we can make another table. And we're going to have our flights. So flights. And they're going to have the ID and they'll have a flight number. All right. Which I guess the ID could have been the flight number. We could have just done it that way, but whatever. We'll make one more table. And, well, we'll just leave that table blank for now. We'll understand why we need that here in a minute. All right, so we talked about these relationships. So our passengers to our, oh, I didn't do passport. How did I leave off passport? All right. And passport. All right. So each passenger will have one passport, right? So we need to have a one-to-one relationship between these two tables. So we'll come here, we'll click on one-to-one, and we are looking good. So one passenger to one passport. Everybody okay with that? That's how we set that up? That's the obvious one, right? So there we go. We got that connection made. And then we'll come over here and we'll say, hey, look, what about passengers to luggage, right? So there's going to be a relationship to luggage. What kind of relationship is there going to be to luggage, guys?
Many.
One to many, 100%. So if I have passenger here on the left and I have luggage here on the right, should I be doing one to N or N to one?
110.
110.
One to N. Perfect. There you go. One to N. And now we got to figure out flights, right? So we have some easy ones done over here. We got our luggage. We see our crow's feet, right? Lets us know it's one to many. And we got our passport. But now we got to figure out flights. So a passenger can have many flights, but a flight can also have many passengers. So I can't just do something like this, right? Because every time we do this, we're adding foreign keys, right? We have to add foreign keys to all these things and build that relationship. So, we would have on passport, we would have something like passenger ID, right? This would be a foreign key. I don't know how to do foreign keys in this thing. We'll leave it as big int because it'd be a big int. This is going to be it's going to be, is that what this button does? Aha, no, primary key, unique key, none, index. It's null or not null. Huh, okay. Well, I don't know how to tell that that's the foreign key, but that's gonna be the foreign key. That's gonna be referring back to our passenger, right? So we're gonna be able to use this passenger ID and look up in the passenger table who the passport belongs to. Right, and the same idea here is the luggage would also have a foreign key. that would be the passenger ID. That would tell us, okay, hey, this luggage belongs to this passenger type, right? And we'll be able to use this ID and this ID to glue these tables together and kind of pull all this information at one time. But when we have multiple passengers going on multiple flights, that setup doesn't work anymore. Because I don't know how in the world I would set that up to be able to figure out this out cleanly, right? Like where would I be putting what IDs would I be putting where? Doesn't really make any sense. So when you have that many to many, that's when you have to have this join table. Okay. And join tables are generally named something like passenger underscore flights. So it's just kind of the two tables joined together, unless you can think of a more realistic term. Um, like we did before, I think we had an enrollment table before, right? And that was our many to many table in a previous lesson we did. So same idea here. I will call this passengers per flight. But if I called this passenger flights, that would have been, that's pretty standard. That would have been fine to do as well. So when we do this, now the way we set this up is I have a one-to-many relationship on this side. And then on this side, I have a one-to-many relationship going this way. There we go. All right. So you see the many relationships is in this passenger's flight. So once again, the way this is going to work is say I have a passenger with ID of 1. His name is Kyle. We have a passenger ID of 2. His name is Stan. All right. We have a flight going to Denver called DEN 127, right? And Kyle and Stan need to get home to Denver. So we need to book them on that flight to Denver. So what we do over here in our passenger's flight table is, hold on, let's go ahead and write some stuff in here. So we would have a passenger ID and we would have a flight ID. Okay. And now the idea of this middle table is we will now say, hey, look, the passenger with ID 1, he's going to go take, sorry, I didn't, let me change my color here. This flight also has an ID of 1 there, so sorry. So ID of 1 for this flight. So the passenger with the ID of 1, so this is passenger, we'll do flight over here, is joining up to flight with the ID of 1. And then I can have Stan, he's going to have the ID of 2, and he's also going to get on that flight. Okay, so now if I keep doing this, right, let's add a third person. We'll add Cartman. All right, and we'll add maybe a second flight here. Who knows where they're going to go? We'll just put them at CB for Casa Bonita and 128. All right, so that's going to be their flight number. So maybe now Stan is also taking the flight to Casa Bonita. So that'd be 2-2. Right, and then Cartman comes in, and Cartman needs to go to Denver as well, so that's 3-1. And maybe Cartman also wants to go to Casa Bonita because he's fat and loves his cheesy poofs and his tacos and burritos. So he's going to be going to Casa Bonita. And so I'll put a 2 here. And that is how we link these tables. So if I came back in here and I was trying to query this, I could link this up to where these IDs match, right? Where this passenger ID matches this passenger ID, where this flight ID matches this flight ID. And then I can find all the passengers for every flight, right? So if I did that, I could see, look, I have Kyle is on to flight 1. And I could look, hey, look, who else is on flight 1? Well, then we know we have Stan. And down here, we see that Cartman's on that flight. If I wanted to look at it a different way, I could say, hey, look, what flights are Cartman on? I could search by the ID for Stan. I could say, look, what flights are he on? Well, he's on the 2 with the passenger ID of 2. So he's on flight 1 and flight 2. And we can look that up in this table. We got any questions on these relationships, guys? Does this make any sense, or did I just draw a bunch of scribbles on the board? Yeah, we're good. All right, cool. All right, so this is what we're going to be modeling inside of our database, inside of our new application that we have built. All right, so let's go ahead and move on over here to our code. All right, just fixing that README there. So just to give you get you familiar with my working environment today, we see we have a container here. This is my running relationships container. I have my bash into my container for the relationships app. So this is the second project. So this is them running there. This is the bash into it. So I'll be coming in here to run stuff inside of my container. And then these other ones all have to do with the Pokemon app. And we'll do that in the second part of the first lecture today. All right. So we'll get there later. But I've already started you off here with this project. It's built out pretty much the same way as the other one, except you notice it's not using a VinV. But that's okay. I have everything inside of the container right now. I went ahead and built 3 apps. One's called one-to-one, one's called one-to-many-to-one, and one's called many-to-many. I'm not doing this because you need to have a separate app for each one of these relationship types. All the models we're building today could be built in one app and in one models file, and it'd be perfectly fine. I split it out like this, so it'll be faster and easier for you to refer back when you guys are trying to figure out, hey, how did I do this relationship? How do I do this kind of relationship? So I'm just kind of splitting it out for that sake for you. And it also gives us a little bit of repetition. Just kind of practicing some stuff. All right, so is everybody clear on that? You don't need a different app for every relationship. Okay. Awesome. So let's get started. These are all empty. I haven't done anything to any of these things. I've just created them with these names. And then we have all of our Docker and all of our server stuff working fine. And I have registered them, right? When you make one of these apps, you do have to register it into your settings.py. So they're all registered right here. And always remember, when you create an app, you got to register your app. All right. We are going to start right here in one-to-one, and we're going to head over to our models, and we will go ahead and build out a model. So we're going to build class passengers. And our one-to-one relationship, remember, was our passenger to passport relationship. So that's what we're going to be working on inside of here is passenger to passport. All right, remember, when I make a new class, what do I need to inherit from, guys? What should this say inside of the parentheses to make this work and work with our database? Who remembers?
Is it models?
Close. Models.
Models dot model.
Dot model. Yes, dot capital model. Yes, very close. So models dot capital model. That is what we bring in. And now we have all the power, right? I have the power. For anybody who's watched the new He-Man movie, just came out. All right. So that gives us all of our powers, and we will say now name is equal to models.char field. All right. And that's just going to give us a name, and we'll give it a default. And we'll just say, I don't know. IDK. I don't know the name. And then we will go ahead and build out a stringer so we can have some nice, clean, easy to read stuff inside of our Django admin. There we go. Also, before I get too far down this rabbit hole, okay. I wanted to point this out to you guys. If you guys are running this locally for some reason, if you are, this relationships database is being hosted outside the container in port 8001. So that allows me to host the other project in here on port 8000 still. And to do that, I just made this little change inside of my run server where I said on outside the container, it's going to be port 8001. Inside the container, that's 8000. So that's all I'm doing there. So when I do go to my Django admin for this portion of the class, I'll be going to localhost 8001. All right. So when we do go to that Django admin, we do want to be able to see a nice clean representation of our passenger. So we will come here and just write return an F string. We will use our angle brackets as that is kind of standard issue. And we will say something like name. And we'll just put the name, right? Self.name. All right, so that is our passenger. I don't think anybody has any questions on that, right? It was the easiest thing we've done in weeks. That is our passenger. We'll go ahead and build our passport. Passport's going to inherit from models.model. That's the models model, right? That's the best model. Help you try to remember that. All right. So we will give it is valid. So is the passport valid or not? And that's going to be a Boolean field, right? Models.Boolean field. I think I forgot to put this in my diagram earlier. I apologize. We are adding an is valid field to our passport. And we will default that they have a valid passport. And we will, once again, we will have our def stringer. And nope, that's not what I want to do. We will make this an F string. And we will say is valid, colon, self.is valid. And we'll do our pipe and we'll say passenger is self.passenger name. Now that doesn't make any sense to you yet. Self.passenger name. I don't have anything called passenger, right? So why did I write that? Well, because we're about to, right? We're going to build this relationship so I can say self.passenger on my passport and actually get back the passenger who that passport belongs to. This is my goal here. And when I do this, I can actually do passenger.name. So I can actually get the name of the passenger it belongs to. So this is actually giving me back the entire passenger when we do it like this. Okay. So to make that connection so that all works, we'll come here. I will call it passenger. And we will say models dot 1 2 1 field. All right. And now we're going to say it's to the passenger. All right. So this is saying we have a 1-to-1 field and it is linked to this passenger class. So that is making that connection. All right. Everybody good with that? Then once again, I need my on delete. Okay. And for that to say on delete, remember we need to say cascade. That's models.cascade. It's capital cascade. Can somebody besides Simon explain to me what the cascade does again?
It deletes it so there isn't left as an orphan when the when you delete passenger.
Yeah, right. So if I delete passenger, as you said, we go ahead and murder this guy because we don't like orphans here. Right? Kill all orphans. All right. So, yeah, it's kind of rude, but there we go. That's what it's doing. Now we will do one more thing called related name. We'll set that equal to passport. So I told you what this did before, but this is kind of a weird, it feels like magic a little bit. So what it's really doing essentially is it's writing in down here something called passport. All right. And that is, so now when I have my passenger, I could now do a dot and I could get into his actual passport. So I could do something like passport is equal to self dot passport, or let's say valid passport. That makes even more sense. Valid passport. Let's do passport dot is valid. Right. There we go. So now I can have this ability. So now I can go backwards this way. So now we can talk back and forth between these two things. Okay. Anybody have a question on that? All right. So let's go ahead. Now that we made those changes, I need to do my migration steps, right? Nope, I didn't do that. Okay. Cool. All right, I'll have to do this the long way. Actually, I'm going to alias this, guys, just to make our lives easier, because we all know I can't spell manager correctly to save my life. I'm going to say there's going to be something I'm going to call PM. I'm going to alias that, and it's going to be Python manage.py. All right, so every time I run PM, I'm running Python manage.py, so I don't have to misspell for you all day long. All right, so now I'll do PM make migrations. All right, we've made a migration. That made the migration file. We now can see this inside of my migrations. We did an initial migration. And we see we have that models.one-to-one field on delete cascade, related name passport. So we see that whole relationship being built out here. All right. Note, you see this syntax? Sometimes you can't see stuff when you're writing. So you can put the class for 2 inside quotes and refer to it by the module. So that's what that's doing. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Now we did our make migration, so let's go ahead and make that migrate. All right, so we applied those migrations to our database, and they are good to go. All right, so now what we're going to see here, I'm going to do PM SQL migrate 121.0.0.1. One, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1. 0, 0, 0, 1. There we go. All right, what this is doing is showing us the SQL code that's actually going to get written. Okay. And I was referring to the migration file here. So this is going to show us what's getting written into SQL. And what you see is we have created a table 121 passenger, ID, big int, primary key generated by default as identity, which we used to say auto generate, or yeah, we used to say auto generate, but this is the new way to do it, by the way. Name is varchar not null. And then down here, we are creating our model passport. So create table, 121 passport, ID, big int, primary key generated by default, blah, 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 is valid, passenger, ID, big int, not null, unique. And then we altered the table of 121 passport to add a constraint. So this is us adding that relationship. So we say 121 passport, passenger ID, blah, 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 blah. This is just a really long constraint table. And the foreign key is the passenger ID, and it refers to the 121 passenger's ID. All right. Defer, initially deferred commit. So that is the SQL table that's actually getting written. So if we look back here at the passport, right? What you're seeing, oh, right here, sorry. What you're seeing is that it added passenger ID, right? We never wrote passenger ID up here, did we? But it added us for us because it is doing that relationship for us. Remember, I had to go add those into the table manually, and here it's doing it for us. Everybody see that? That's kind of my big point of showing you this. So there's no such thing as like a one-to-one column, right? It's a foreign key plus the word unique. That's what makes it that's what makes it the right setup. That's how you set that up in SQL. All right. Any questions on that? Or on this one-to-one relationship before we move on? Still got a couple more steps on this, but all right, so let's go ahead. Now we have created a new model, and we need to now register our models with our admin portal, right? So it actually works in our admin. So let's go ahead and do that. So we say admin.site.register, and we will register passport. Okay. We got to go ahead and import it, right? Auto import. No, it doesn't want to do that. That would be too easy. All right. So from .models, we will import passenger and passport. Those are the ones we need to put in here. So I put in passport, and that's fine. But now we need to add passenger as well. Okay. So here I added it just as a single item when I was only adding one thing. Okay. But if we look at this, it says it takes a model or iterable. So it either takes a model or a list of models. Okay, so I don't separate these by commas. It doesn't take star args. It takes either a model or a list of models. It's the only way to do it. So I can just come here and I can do this. And I would tell you, probably just always do it like this for good habit, because it's just perfectly fine to put a list of one model in here. And then whenever you need to add a second model, it'll be easy for you to add from then on. So we'll do passport and passenger. And just because logically, I just feel like passenger should go first, I'm going to go ahead and put passenger first. All right, so now if I come over to my port 8001 version of my admin and I refresh it, I now have my passports table and my passengers table. All right, so we'll go ahead and we will create a passenger. Add passenger. We're going to add Francisco as my passenger today. All right, so there's Francisco. We'll save him. And it broke. All right, let up. Okay, so passenger has no. Tell me it doesn't can't do this because it doesn't have a passport. Okay.
Isn't that because you put passport is valid true?
Well, it's on the passport field. So it's saying it's trying to link it up and say I need to have it when I'm doing it, which I didn't think it was going to do that at this point in time. I'm a little confused here. Why this is happening? One to one.
Can you scroll up a little bit so I could see the other one as well?
Have you made migrations and migrated?
I did. I can make sure. Yeah, no changes detected. And migrate is good. Nothing to apply.
Judging from her lack of luggage, I just assumed she had no interest in buying clothes. I guess you're a stickler about color coordination, are you?
I wouldn't say that exactly. And most of the house would be totally behind me.
Oh, it's your return statement on line 10.
Looks like the extra outfits will be ready.
Oh, because I have this in there. Right.
Right.
Can't have that in there yet. I was getting overzealous. Thank you. All right. It needed that because it's trying to get that because it has to have that to be able to do the Reaper method there. And that's what was causing our issue. Later, I'll show you that error again, and then I'll show you how to fix that error with your serializer. All right, so we've made Francisco. And I now need to add a passport. So we'll create a passport for Francisco. It'll belong to him. So I can come here to this drop down and pick who it belongs to, and it will be is valid. And we will give him a valid passport. All right, so there is our beautiful little guy here. All right. And once again, you see how we see Francisco all nicely here? That is that stringer method, right? That's why it looks nice and neat for us when we're inside of here. All right, so what we'll do now is I'll try to add another passport, and I'll try to add that to Francisco. What do you guys expect to happen? What's up, Dom? You can just yell out at me, Dom.
It's a one-to-one relationship between the passenger and the passport, so it should produce an error, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I should not be allowed to give Francisco 2 passports. All right. Good job. All right, so that is our one-to-one. We're going to go ahead now and work in the shell on our one-to-one so we can kind of look at that. So I'm going to pull this up, clear this stuff out so we get a nice little working area. And we will do PM shell. We're going to go ahead into this into our shell inside of our Docker container for our relationship container here. All right, so now we'll say Francisco is equal to a passengers dot objects dot get Francisco. So we are trying to look up Francisco. So we're saying where the name equals Francisco. Oh. Oh, I will write this right one of these times. Lowercase o. There we go. So now we have Francisco. And we see he's a passenger with the name of Francisco. And we can say something like dot passport, and that will give us his whole passport. We can say dot passport dot is valid, and that's going to say true. All right, so now we can just keep kind of chaining this together, right? Now I can say something like Francisco. This is fun, guys, so you should chuckle. Dot passport dot passenger dot name. And what should that give me, guys? We're going in a big circle here.
That should give them,
Francisco.
Yeah, it's still gonna for Francisco. Okay, so we've made a full circle around our database connection. So we said Francisco, we got his passport, and then the passport has the passenger attached to it, right? The passport has the passenger attached to it. So we got that back, and then we got the passenger's name. Obviously, that's a little bit silly, right? I could have just done Francisco.name, but I wanted to show you that relationship and how it just rolls around. All right. Pretty neat, right? So what is the reverse side of this? Or sorry, what type is the reverse side of that? So if we say Francisco.passport, let's look at what the type is. All right. That is our actual object. Okay. It's not a query set, which is my point here. All right. So we do have the actual passport as that piece. So a one-to-one reverse gives you the object directly. You don't need to use a .all. You don't need to use a filter. All right, we'll see a little bit different when we get to part 2 of this lecture, okay? So now what I'm going to do is we're going to break some stuff on purpose here. All right, I'm going to just clear some of this. I can't clear out because I'm not in the terminal anymore. I'm going to exit, clear, re-enter my shell. All right. Now we're back in our shell again, and I'm going to make Amy. I can say passengers dot objects dot create. So this would how I can create something. So passenger to objects dot create. I can set the name equal to Amy. And now we have Amy. And now if I say Amy dot passport, what do you guys think is going to happen? We don't have a passport, right? She doesn't have a passport. So what in the world is going to happen? Let's see. Boom. Gives us an error. And it says one-to-one models, passenger, passport, object relation does not exist. Passenger has no passport. So I can't refer to his passport yet or her passport yet. All right. So what we can do is we can say objects, or sorry, passport dot objects dot create, and we will create one. Sorry, we're not gonna create one for that. Sorry, I need to do this. Nope, I need to create Francisco again. I forgot my next step. So that's showing that you do need to have that. I need to make a passport before I can access the passport, right? So we can make our passport and give her one. The next thing I wanted to show you though is dealing with Francisco again. So let's make Francisco again. All right, I'm just gonna write Fran. I cannot spell your name. I'm gonna call you Frank. And passenger.objects.get, and we'll name him Francisco correctly here. I think I can at least get it spelled right once. All right. And what I want to show you now is what happens if I try to give him another passport inside of a shell like this. So I can say passport.object.create. We're going to create a passport, and we'll create it and we'll hand it over. We'll say passenger is equal to Frank. So this is how I can assign the passenger to Frank, and that builds that relationship for us. But Francisco already has already has a passport, right? We've already given him a passport. So if I do this, I should get it doesn't like it. So I should say is valid equals false this time. And when I run this, boom, we got a problem. And this is because it's a one-to-one relationship, right? And what you're going to see when you have a one-to-one relationship and you try to add a second thing, which we tried to do in the admin a minute ago, now we did it in the terminal here, is you get this integrity error, and it's going to say you're violating the unique constraint of the one-to-one passenger ID key. So you're violating the constraints of the foreign primary key relationship. All right, so that's what that will look like when you get that error in the terminal or inside of your application. So this will be the same error you get if you write your code wrong and something goes wrong. This is the stuff you're going to see that shows up here in the terminal. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on our serializer for this. So let's go on over and make a serializer inside of our one-to-many. Or sorry, one-to-one. Right, is that what we're doing? Yes. All right. Serializers.py. All right. So we'll say from the REST framework dot serializers. We're going to import our model serializer. All right, and we'll go ahead and import our models. So from dot models, we will import passenger and passport. And we will build our passport serializer. It will inherit from model serializer. And we'll build our class meta. All right, remember this is kind of the general setup that we use for all these. I will point for the model of what model is this going to use. Well, this is using that passport model. And we will do our fields. So this is that part of the lecture that I gypped you guys out yesterday, and then I re-recorded it, and then I shared you the stupid screen of my face the whole time instead of the screen share. Please, guys, if that happens, just let me know. I will fix it much faster. I did get that right one up there. I do apologize. So to do this, it's really simple. We just write all, double underscore all, instead of listing out all the fields. So that's all we have to do there. And we will build our passenger serializer. And that will inherit from model serializer. And then once again, we will have our class meta. We will say the model is equal to passenger. And we will set the fields. All right. Actually, we won't set it all. What we're going to do is set it to a list of the fields. All right, so we're set it to the ID, the name, and the passport. All right, but if we do this, we have name, ID, name, and passport. What is it going to do for passport? Right? It doesn't understand how to, it's not going to really know how to handle our passport very well. So what we want to do is we want to come up here inside of our actual class part, not the meta part. And we're going to write passport is equal to our passport serializer that we wrote above. Okay. And then we're going to put in here read only equals true. All right. So note this passport here must match this related name here coming from our model. Okay. So this and this must match. All right. So why did I put read only equals true? Well, you guys just kind of saw why. Okay, so the error I was getting a minute ago was because I was trying to create a passenger without a passport, and I was trying to refer to the passport inside my class, so it was trying to use it. So the same kind of situation is true here. If I try to create a passenger with the serializer, it's going to require a passport, but I can't make a passport without a passenger first, right? Everybody, we saw that error a minute ago, right? So does that make sense to everybody? I can't create the passenger or the passport without a passenger. So I need to have the passenger first. Show of head nods. It's a big deal. This is a big deal concept here. Just make sure you guys understand. All right, so I can't do that. So I'm saying read only equals true, and that will prevent it from forcing me to give it a value when I'm creating it. So now it's only a read only value. It's only a value that I'm going to read from, as opposed to be creating from. All right, so cool. I'm gonna come back here in my shell. And what am I doing here? We go ahead and import some stuff. So I'm going to import from 1 to 1 dot serializers dot nothing. We're going to import our passenger serializer. Hopefully I spelled all that right. No, I did not. Import 1 to 1 serializers serializer. Oh, it's pointing at the word import. I should have caught on that I wrote the word import twice, and that should be from. Or that should be import. First, it should be from. All right, there we go. And then we'll also import our passenger model from our models page. Which actually, that's already imported, so we don't need that. All right. So let's use our serializer now. We'll say passenger serializer. So we're going to now serialize Francisco. So I'm going to say passenger dot objects dot get. We were going to get where the name is equal to Francisco to pull out Francisco. Right, so that middle part is just an SQL query, getting me Francisco back. And then we were running it through the serializer, and we were going to look at that data. So that's the data that we are trying to transform and send out. And what we'll see is we now have this nice, beautiful piece here, right? So once again, if I don't have read only here, let me just delete that real quick. And now we try it. It's too late. We already has a passport, so I guess it doesn't. Not gonna show that error. Never mind. All right. But what we do see is we have our beautiful thing here. ID, name, Francisco, passport, and the passport you see is this whole other object full of stuff. And that is all the information that belongs to a passport, which is the fields all being serialized up here. So does everybody see what's happening with our serializer? And how it's building that many to one relationship and it's associating it inside of here? Or sorry, that one-to-one relationship and it's associating inside of here? This structure is starting to look familiar, right? It's starting to look like what we used to see in Pokemon, right? Poke API. We come in here, right? We have, see if I can find a good example. Sprites, right? So maybe I have sprites and this is all the different properties of sprites, which I don't think that's what this is, but maybe that's how this works. Right, so we have a dictionary inside of our thing. So we know we have a relationship being shown. And that's what we're seeing here, that relationship. All right, so we just created a one-to-one app. We registered it. We showed you a one-to-one field. We showed you how it created a foreign key by giving the unique property on our SQL. We did the reverse. We said the reverse of a one-to-one, you get the object back. And then we showed how to do the serializers and showed the nested nature of how that shows up as a nested dictionary. Any questions on one-to-one before we move on to many-to-one? Everybody feeling fairly confident about how to build this one-to-one relationship in their model? Head nods, head shakes, scream in terror. Feeling good? All right. Since it's gonna be a long lecture, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys just a 4-minute break. Let's come back at 25 and we'll move on to the many-to-one.
I'm here if anyone has any questions. Yeah, so that's exactly the goal, Mohammed. We're essentially trying to build our own RESTful API, but we're working backwards, right? Rather than just building the API view and then providing a response, which is essentially what we did in the past. We are working from the database schema and then working our way up to have everything set up so that when somebody sends a request, we can send back a response with everything already JSON serialized. And that's where model serializers come into play.
Is that how RESTful API is built in general? Like,
Yeah, so I think Kevin was showing a demonstration of the Poke API. So if you take a look at the Poke API, there's a lot of times where there's like nested list with a bunch of dictionaries inside of them, right? What that is a many-to-one connection, right? And then we're going to see that here shortly in one of Kevin's examples. But essentially, that many-to-one connection, it's going to query the database. It's going to ask the entire database to give me a list of all of the different queries or all the different rows that are matched up with me, right? So here we can see as an example of abilities that he's going over, right? All of those would get returned inside of a dictionary object and then we would have them inside nested with us, right? There's concepts like pagination and a couple of additional things that we can apply, but we're probably not going to talk about those, and instead we're going to focus a lot on authentication.
okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Of course.
Right. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll move on over here to the many-to-one section, and we're going to talk about many-to-one relationships. All right, once again, these could all be written in the same model file, right? We're just separating this out for easy reference for you. So we'll build our model here. Remember, our many-to-one example was our luggage, right? Because one passenger can have many pieces of luggage. All right, so I will go ahead and create a class called luggage bag. Luggage bag. Nope, the double G is in the front, huh? Luggage bag. All right, and it will inherit from the model of all models. All right, models.model, and we will have our class. So we'll say weight models, and this will be an integer field. and it'll just be how much this bag weighs. We're given a default value of 35. Make our lives easy. All right. Weight. I before E, except after C, or when it sounds like A in neighbor. All right. And we'll give this thing a stringer. All right, so we'll do the passenger.name, which doesn't make any sense yet. And we will do our pipe and we'll show the weight. All right, perfect. So we got our weight and we got our passenger name. So what we need to do now is we need to go ahead and see that model or make that connection, that many to one connection. And the way we do that is this. So we say passenger is equal to models dot foreign key. All right, so this is the foreign key. And then we're going to say, where is it a relationship to? And now I don't want you guys to get confused here because the wording of here is really confusing. So we're going to the passenger model. That's what we're trying to say. But we don't have access to the passenger model in here. I could import it. And then I could write passenger here. But if you can't import it, or maybe you have to write your models out of order, right? So if you imagine this first one-to-one, we could imagine I wrote passport first and then passenger next, and then I wouldn't be able to refer to passenger like I did here, right? So in the case where you can't just put the class name, you can put it inside of quotes, and then you'll do the app dot the model. Okay, so our app is the one-to-one app dot passenger is where the model lives. Okay, one-to-one is because the app name is one-to-one. Okay, so I know it looks a little confusing when you're reading this. It's not saying there's a one-to-one relationship here. It's saying the passenger came from the one-to-one model. Okay, and that's how you can get these things in here if you don't have access to the actual passenger object. Any questions on that too? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, awesome, awesome. Every time I look at that, it throws me for a loop. So that's why I'm making sure you guys see that that's not talking about a one-to-one relationship. All right, so on delete, we will once again do our models.cascade to kill all the orphans. And then we'll give it a related name, which again, the related name will be the name of our luggage as it pertains to our passenger. So we will call it luggage bags. All right, there we go. We now have our luggage being made. So once again, we had to use foreign key versus over here, we use one-to-one field. So foreign key will give us the one-to-many relationship. Note, the foreign key always goes on the many side of the relationship. Okay? On the many side. That's why it's on the luggage and not on the passenger. All right. Awesome. Also, guys, if I would have, another reason here I put this here in quotes instead of importing passenger from those models is because you can get what's called a circular import. And essentially what that means is I'm in one file and it says, hey, look, import from this other file. And then when it gets to the top of the next file, it says, hey, import from the previous file. And then it looks at that one and it says, well, import from this file. And then it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it never gets past the import statement because it keeps trying to import from itself. So it makes a circular loop of logic for our imports. So that's another reason why we put this in quotes. All right. Any questions on that, on our model here on our related name, on the way we did the to field. Everybody feel okay with that? All right, well, I'm headed back now. I just exited out of the Python shell I was in, the Django shell I was in, and I got back to my regular container shell. And we are going to go ahead and run our migrations. So pm make migrations. And we will do pm migrate. All right. So now we have made that migrations. We can see our new migrations file here, and we see all the goodies that it has done for us, right? So it's just kind of telling it to build it. But once again, that doesn't really show us the SQL. Just so you guys can see the SQL, we will do pm SQL migrate mini to 1 0 0 0 1. Get that commit. And what you're seeing here is we are creating a table. And then down here, so we got the passenger IDs here, and it's in here as not null. So we do have to have a passenger ID in order to make a piece of luggage. And that's really what I was trying to point out there, I think. All right, the only thing that is different. So before, if you remember on the one-to-one example, our passenger ID, where is that? Passenger G, it was not null, but it was also unique because it was one-to-one. Well, this time it's one to many or many to one. So we want this to not be unique because we need to be able to have many, the passenger needs to have many different bags, right? So if it was unique, I couldn't have two bags. Does that make sense? Because I would be putting in the same primary key for two different users or for two different pieces of luggage. And if I try to put two pieces of luggage with the same passenger ID, if it was unique, it would say, hey, that violates the constraints. All right, so that's the difference between the one-to-many and the many-to-many way you set that up in the table in SQL. All right. So if you just drop the word unique from a column, that will change it from a one-to-many or from a one-to-one to a one-to-many. All right, so let's go ahead. Any questions? All right. Go ahead and register this to our admin so we can go ahead and play with him. And we will go ahead and have to import this guy. So from .models import luggage bag. And we will do admin dot register dot, what's it, model?
Site. The admin
That's
dot
site,
site
that's right.
dot register.
Admin dot site dot register. All right, thank you. Thank you. I'm doing it in my notes a different way, and then I'm getting myself confused. All right, dot register. And we will pass in luggage bag. All right, perfect. All right. Now, we will build our serializer. For this guy. All right, so we'll come in here, we'll make serializers. Serializers. .py. And we will build our serializer out. So from REST framework .serializers, import the model serializer, and then we'll import that model from our luggage bag. All right, so we'll build our class luggage bag or luggage serializer. You'll import from the model serializer, and we'll build our meta. So the model is luggage bag, and we want all the fields. All right, so now we have on our passenger so much stuff open. All right, so back here on here, our passenger should now have something called luggage. All right. Right, or luggage underscore bags. All right, so that's kind of being added as well. All right, so let's go on over to our Django admin. I will come back here, and we now have luggage bags. So now I come here and add a luggage bag. We will make it 55 pounds because Francisco has a lot to carry, and we will give him a bag. All right, so let's try to give him another bag and make sure that works. 65 pounds for Francisco, and we'll hit save. Awesome. So he can now have multiple bags. And multiple passengers can also have multiple bags. So let's give Amy some bags. She's going to be packing light. She'll have a 10-pound bag. And she'll have a 20-pound bag. All right, and you see it's giving us a drop down, making that connection for us. All right, pretty cool. Everybody seen how that's working so far? All right, so I'm going to pop back over here, hop back in my shell, and we will do a little bit of writing here. I will once again go ahead and make Francisco, and I'll call him Frank. And we're going to get where the name is equal to Francisco, so we can pull him out. Yes, getting lost in your folder structure is 100% back-end experience. Yes, that will happen to you guys all day. All right, so we got our Frank, we got the passenger, and he exists. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the type of Frank.luggage bags. And so you can assure what we got here. Look at that. We got a related manager. That's not a luggage bag. That's different than a luggage bag. All right, so if we do Frank.luggage bags, once again, I guess it's all you're saying. But if I do .all, if I add a .all to that, now look at that. Now we're getting a query set of all of our luggage pieces. That's how we have to get in there. All right. So the reverse of one-to-one gives you the object. So you can write something like frank.passport. The reverse of the foreign key gives you a manager. So you have to write something like frank.luggagebags.all. Okay, so I'm trying to make that connection between what we did on the previous example. The manager isn't the data. It's a question you haven't asked, which is why you have to keep narrowing it down. All right, so we can do something like frank.luggagebags.count. Now tell me how many bags Francisco has, right? I could do this the same thing. Instead of doing a count, I can do a filter. And I can look for what bags does he have that is greater than, sorry, I forgot what I put in there. Okay, so I'll say greater than 60. Wait double underscore GT equals 20. So that's weight is greater than 20. All right, so I should just see the one bag. Oh, sorry, not 20. I meant to do 50, meant to do 60. So I'd only see one bag. So now if I do greater than 60, I just see the one bag that's weighted 65 pounds. All right. If I wanted to make this query and go a little bit fancier with it, right, I could do something like, hey, look, I want to get those bags. I want to order them by something. And I can say I want to order them descending by weight. And then we get them in weight order. All right, so those are some things we can do. We can go ahead and do the trip back. So I can say something like bag is equal to Frank dot luggage bags dot first. And we can now see, we have a bag in here. That is a bag. So I can say bag dot passenger dot name, and I can go all the way back, right? Oops. I can get all the way back and get to Francisco again, right? Making that round trip around one more time. And if I really wanted to, I could even go all the way in to passport. And now from the bag, I have gone to the passenger and then got the passenger's passport, right? And if we really wanted to go get real crazy, right? I can go back to the passport's passenger and get his name. And we got Francisco. All right, so that's how this all works behind the scenes. All right. So we're going to come back to our serializers for a luggage bag, and we're going to make a little bit of modification. All right. Or sorry, not to here. Sorry, to our passengers. We're going to come back over here and modify our passport serializer or passenger serializer. So we added passport to it previously. Now we need to add luggage bag. All right, so to do that, we will come here. We'll say equals. And we will use our luggage serializer. And we will import that from many to one. Import many to one dot serializers. Getting ahead of myself. Import luggage serializer. All right, then we can use our luggage serializer right here. And when we do this, we're going to say many is equal to true because now there are many, that's a many to one relationship. So there are going to be many luggage bags, right? So I need to tell it there's going to be many things that you need to read. And then once again, we don't want to have an error when we try to create a passenger without any luggage. So we're going to give it read only is equal to true. All right. And now we will add in here our luggage bags. Awesome. And now everything is nice and happy. So the real difference between the way we did this for our other serializers, right, for the passport is the many equals true. So these are pretty much the same, but since we're doing a one to many, we need to add the many is equal to true. All right, awesome. So once again, just to show you this inside the terminal, I will do passenger serializer. I will pass in Frank, and we will get the data, which would be like what we're trying to send out through our API call. And it says passenger serializer is not defined because I didn't import it yet. From 1 to 1, import passenger serializers. From 1 to 1, passenger serializer. Yes, SENGRSERILS. Oh, from one-to-one dot serializers. I'm not finished writing it. All right, one-to-one serializers. We'll import our password serializer. Now I can go ahead and serialize Francisco and see his data. And now we see this beautiful format of our luggage bags, right? So now we see luggage bags is a list of objects, right? So we're seeing this many to one relationship. All right. We've seen this in our Poke API, right? If we come here to the moves is a list of moves that are objects. So this is index 0. This guy only has 1, but he has a move, right? So are our abilities. Our abilities have a list of different abilities. Our stats, same deal. So those are all showing us that those are a one-to-many relationship. All right. Any questions, guys, before we move on to many-to-many? All right. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll get to many-to-many. And I hope you guys don't mind. I'm taking this really slow with you guys. So we are wasting a lot of the day. All right, so inside of here, we'll go ahead and build our class of flight. We will take in models.model. And I will have a flight number. Flight number. And that's going to be a models.char field, where we give it a default. And we can default it to whatever we want. I don't know. I'm just going to use that. That's going to be our default. And passengers equals. So let's go ahead and build that relationship. So we need to get all the passengers that belong to a flight. Once again, that was a many-to-many relationship. To do that, we say models dot many-to-many field. We say, where are we going to? We are going to that one-to-one apps passenger class. So that's the model we want. And we have a related name. And we're going to say flight. So that means on the passenger, we now have something called flights that we can get our flights from. We will build out a stringer. Fix and self. And we will return some information. So we're going to return the flight number. And we'll return the passengers. All right, so the passengers are going to be in a list called passengers. So passengers is going to be a whole list of all my passengers. So in order to get all my passengers listed here, I need to like do some sort of for loop. So I'm going to use a list comprehension, and I'm going to pull out the passenger name. So I'll say p.name for p and self.passengers.all. All right, perfect. Now, we don't have a cascade, right? There is no cascade on delete because no owned row belongs anywhere necessarily. There is no owned row to cascade on. So deleting either side just removes the linked rows. All right, so essentially you're just removing rows from the middle table. So you're not having to kill either side of it. So the relationship can live. All right, so where you put this many-to-many field, it can go on either side. I could have put a many-to-many on the passenger, or I could have put it on the flight. So you really just pick whatever makes the most sense. We picked flights because we think, who's on this flight more often than what flight is he on? So that's why we chose that logic, right? But we could have done it either way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do my migrations. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still inside of Python here. Make migrations, migrate, and we are going to look at that SQL again. Oh, one more zero. All right. All right, so we got all this output, right? We got a whole lot of stuff going on. What I'm trying to point out here is it's doing a create table called flight underscore passengers, called many to many flight underscore passengers. All right, we never told it to build that, did we? So behind the scenes, it's building that join table right here. And remember, I told you the generic way we usually name those is passenger underscore flight. And so that's exactly the naming convention you're seeing here. Flight passenger. All right. And then what we also see is this. Unique flight ID and passenger ID. That means the combination of flight ID and passenger ID need to be unique because a passenger can't be on the same plane twice, right? Josh can't get on my plane 2 different times. He can get on it once, he can get off, and he come back on, but he can't sit there and be on my plane twice. So that's what the other thing we're seeing here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to show you that. If we look in the SQL, guys, I don't feel like going into the SQL. It takes a little bit of time. You will now see that table being created, but I think we've understood that, right? We all understand that table is being made for us now that I showed you the P-SQL making it. All right. So we're real quick, we're going to go in here. We will go ahead and register our model. So we'll do admin.site.register. And we need to import our model. And we'll put in flight. All right. Now we can come over to our Django admin. We can go to our flights, add a flight. I'll leave that name. We'll put Francisco and Amy on the flight. So hold down Control or Command on Mac to select more than one item. So we're going to put both of them on my flight. And now we do see that there's a flight with 2 passengers, Amy and Francisco. So pretty cool. I come to passengers, go to Francisco. We don't really see much useful information there, right? But we can see it under our flights. And we can see it inside of our code in a useful way. All right, so we're going to go back to our shell and just going to verify how this works in the shell a little bit. So PM shell. And we'll make Francisco again as Frank. I'm just looking them up like I've done a bunch of other times. All right, so just make sure I got Frank. I did. All right, and then we will get the flight. So I'll get a flight. Where the flight number is equal to 123 HTC. And now I have my flight. All right, so we got these 2 objects. I can do stuff like flight.passengers.all. And that shows me all those passengers. So that's how I get access to all my passengers. I can do frank.flights.all. And we get all of the flights that Francisco's on. Now, right now, he's only on 1. but we can go ahead and make another flight real quick. And we'll call it 321 ABC. And we will add Francisco only to that one. All right, so now Francisco has 2 flights. So if I run this again, we will now see both of his flights. So again, if I run the type of Frank.flights, we will see that it is a manager. It is not anything in particular. All right, so then I'll take Amy. I'm going to go ahead and pick up Amy again, so we'll have access to Amy. We'll get the second flight. So the second flight will be flight.objects.get, where the flight number is equal to 321 ABC. I don't remember how I did that. 321 capital ABC. Oh, I got some typos. Oops. And this one typoed too. All right, so now we have Amy. And now we have second flight called second. All right, so now maybe I want to make Amy a passenger of this second flight. So I'll say second.passengers. And now we're going to add Amy. So we'll do .add, and I'll pass in Amy. All right, so now when I do second.passengers.count, I should see that I have more than 1 passenger, and I have 2. All right. So let's see what happens if I add Amy again. Oh, well, look at that. I could add Amy twice, and if I do .count, it still says 2. So we did say this had to be unique, right? So behind the scenes, this is silently idempotent, is what we say is the phrase. Idempotent means I can run this add command over and over and over again, and it's not going to like add 5,000 Amy's, right? It's not going to have an issue if I accidentally run it too many times. That's idempotent. Good word to know, guys. IDEMPOTENT. 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 All right. Now, maybe Amy drank too much, so we need to remove her. So we're going to come here and say, Amy, get your drunk booty off my plane. So we say .remove, and we're going to remove Amy. All right, so now Amy is gone. If I come back here and look at my flights, that count, we see we're down to 1. All right, pretty cool. If I could do .clear, and I could kick everybody off my flight. If I want to do something like that, I could do .passengers.clear. And now my flight is empty. See, nobody on my flight. All right, cool deal. No, when we did that, we removed Amy. She still exists, right? We still have an Amy. We didn't kill Amy. We just kicked her off the flight. All right, so we're going to go back. Any questions on this, guys? We're almost done. We're going back to our 1-to-1 models. And we are going to update now our Reaper for our passenger, or sorry, our stringer for our passenger. And we will say, pipe, lights. And we will put in all the flights. So I'll come here and I'll say flight, f.flight number, 4f in self.flights.all. All right. We'll go over to our serializer. We'll edit this guy for the last time. And we will add in our flights. So now we'll do flights is equal to serializer. Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. So we're going to add, I guess that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to add serializer. Method field. And we will say read only equals to true. Once again, for the same reason for other ones. And we need to go ahead and import this serializer from all of our serializers that came from Django. And that is our serializer method field. All right. And just for fun, we will go ahead and put a method down here called get flights. It'll take in self, and it will take in an object, and we will return flight dot flight num or flight in whatever you pass it's flights dot all. All right. All right. So why am I using serial method field here, serializer method field? Because if we did not do that, because flight lives in a many-to-many relationship whose serializer would import passenger, which would already import from many to one, and a full nested flight would drag every passenger's whole record along with it. So we don't really want all those extra objects. We just want a list of flight numbers. All right. So that was yesterday's, or that's what we're talking about with this serializer. And so we're using the serializer method field to call this get flights method. All right. So the get right here in front of it is important. It has to be get like this. And then this flights is representative of this word here. All right. So that's how it makes the connection between the serializer method field and the method that we're doing it. And what it's going to do is pass us an object. And what we're trying to do is list it all out. So now when we look at this flights, we will get a list of all the flight numbers because we don't want to have this nested garbage of it giving us all the passengers and all that kind of stuff again, right? Because we don't need that here inside of our passenger serializer. Okay. So we are defining here what the serializer method field is. Okay, so that's what this is doing. And it's linked by the get underscore, and then the flights being the same as the flight here. So it's kind of like a getter, right? When we're doing our getters and setters, same kind of idea here. All right, so the last thing I was going to do here is in my terminal, we'll say from 1 to 1. Import passenger serializer. Got serializers. Import a passenger serializer. And then we will go ahead and I think I have Frank here still, right? Yes. So we'll run this on Frank. And what we're going to see, I pass him in Frank. Sort of field name and fields. Flight for flight. Flight and object. Has not been included in the fields options. Oh, I forgot to add it here in the fields. All right, so we'll go ahead and have flights. To the fields that we're getting. So now we can actually do that. Should be able to do that, right? No, still not doing that for me. Flights was declared on the serializer, passed the serializer, but has not been included in the fields option. What am I missing here? Flights, we've included flights, serial, got my get flights. Francisco, you see what I'm doing wrong here?
Let me see here. Field flights was declared on serializer passenger serializer, but has not been included in the fields option. Okay. Okay, there's the passenger serializer. And then flights has been declared. Okay, so there's flights that has been declared, but has not been included in the fields option. Flights is right here, serializer method field, read only, that should map there. And that should map to get underscore flights. What's raising this error? What operation that you try running that rose this error?
I was trying to serialize Frank. It's telling me that. I'm wondering.
Yeah, it could be that you changed something in the script before
Maybe, yeah,
executing.
maybe there's something going on inside of there. Let's just try this again. Let's just try this again. So I'm just going to copy some of this so we don't have to keep typing it. Go ahead and get that passenger serializer. And I'm going to try to serialize Francisco again and get his data. And there we go. All right. So it just must have needed an update. I don't know. All right.
Yeah. So when you open up the Python shell, the moment it opens,
Oh,
it essentially takes a screenshot of everything that's going on inside of the project. So if you change anything afterwards, it doesn't know what's going on. My bad, Kevin.
yep. That's all good. Yep. That was my fault there. Thank you. And then here we go. Here is our serializer printing out, and we do see our flights now, and we see our flights as a list of strings now instead of being a whole bunch of nested flight objects, which would then just kind of cause an issue, right? Because then we just have all kinds of flight information that we don't need. All right, so that is it for this portion. We will go ahead and take a 10-minute break or a 9-minute break, and we will work on this in the Pokemon side of our app. All right. And I'm going to put a little comparison table inside of the uh, questions channel that explains kind of the differences between the one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-one implementations. But once again, we'll come back in 8 minutes on the 20. All right, guys, let's come back and get this last portion knocked out. We're going to kind of do this a little faster. I'm not going to do a lot of the coding. I'm just going to copy it out of the notes that you guys have on the website. And then I will talk about it a little bit. Okay. So what is needed for a good relationship, guys? Well, we learned we need primary keys, right? Primary keys make these relationships work. All right. So let's go talk about our Pokédex project. So we're back over here in the Pokemon world. What we want to do today is add in moves to our Pokemon. All right. All of this code that I'm going to be copying over is coming from right here, or sorry, from right here. And I'll be copying some of this over. I'll be making some changes to a couple of the files, and I'll let you know what those are when I make them. And we'll be going through this really fast. All right, so the idea is that we now want to add moves to our Pokemon, and we can have moves that belong to mini Pokemon, and mini Pokemon, or Pokemon can have mini moves, right? So if Pikachu and Charmander both can have the move to shoot fire, right? But shoot fire can also have, but they can also have other moves, right? They can also jump high or whatever it may be. What kind of relationship is that?
I think one of many.
One to many would mean one Pokemon could make multiple moves, but not that then another Pokemon couldn't have the same move.
So it'd be many to many.
Many to many, yeah, because we need the Pokemon to be able to share the moves and to have multiple moves. All right, so that is a many to many relationship. So we're going to be setting up a many to many relationship with our Pokemon. So when we try to do this kind of stuff, what we like to do is have a separate app for every kind of big chunk of our program here. So we're going to make a separate app for our move section of our program. So to do that, we need to write. We need to come in here and do I still have that alias? I don't think so. I don't have the alias in here. All right. So we will do our Python manage.py start app, and we will make it called move app. All right. So now we have our move app inside of our Pokédex project, and we can work on this real quick. All right. So let's go ahead and start covering stuff up. Copying stuff in. Well, let's just start one thing at a time here. Let's get the models in. I'm going to move this aside to make my life a little easier, guys. So don't mind me as I go ahead and copy this in. So we got the models.py. Copy this here from our notes. All right, we need to have a validators file. Copy that in from our notes. Tests, serializers. Where are the validators? All right. Here it is. All right, valid moves. And we need our tests. All right. tests, and we'll paste in our tests. But I don't like those tests, so I'm pasting in different tests. So here are the tests I'm pasting in. Oh crap. That did not paste in like I wanted it to. I'll try that again. Try that again. Nope. All right. Do this the hard way. Where did I put that? I really thought that was going to copy out of there a lot easier. All right, here it is. All right, there we go. So I just changed those. I just cleaned those tests up a little bit. They look more like the ones we ran yesterday. All right. And then we need to register with our Pokédex project that we have our new app. We'll go into our settings, register in our app for Moves app. And we now have that registered. All right. We'll come to our admin. We will register our guy, admin.site.register. And we'll pass in our move from our models. Just registering him right here. So we need to import from dot models. Oh my goodness, come on. Import move and register move. All right. There we go. So let's look at this. Got our models here. We made a move. It has a character field and it has a validator of validate move. So validate move. I don't know why it doesn't want to take me over here. Is this function right here with a little bit of regex. And this regex basically is saying that it needs to be all letters. And then if there's another word, it needs to be all letters. So it doesn't allow numbers. All right, so that's kind of what we're doing inside of there. We have our tests. We are going to create a move, give it a name of psychic. We give it a PP. Preston, do you want to explain what PP means?
Power points. Essentially, how many times a Pokemon can use that one move.
Yeah, so that's what PP is. That is in our model here. We have an accuracy. So how accurate are they with their shooting their powers? And then how much power each move has is under power. All right, so it's an integer field. Integer field, positive integer field, so it can't be negative. Character fields. All right. Validate our move name is right here. And that's just using that regex pattern. Sorry. Oh, that's where the stupid validator was. I copied it in here. Aha. All right. So that's all that's doing. Everybody feel okay with what we did here? So then the big part of this is our getting this all set up. All right. Sorry, let me just go ahead and get back in my notes here where I wanted to be here. I'm going to skip this portion. All right. Sorry, I'm just getting myself all out of sorts today. It's organized. So I'm just going to copy this version because it's a little cleaner. So the one out of the notes. Same stuff, just kind of cleaner formatted here. All right, so we got all this stuff. Let's go ahead and make our migrations and get this going into our app. So I'm going to pop over to my Pokemon bash here, and we will do our Python manage.py, make migrations. Make migrations, and we'll go ahead and do our migrate. All right. So now if we go into our Django, hopefully we will see that we have that stuff inside of our database. Get that back over to your screen. And here we go. I'm going to now look on admin at port 8000, and we'll just go /admin. All right, so we've built our moves, and now we have our Pokemons. All right. So if we come in here, we can go ahead and add a move. And we can add a move that says Spitfire. And he has extra 70. The PP is 20, and we have our power. Improper format. All right. So that is our validator, not allowing me to use that format. So we'll make this Spitfire and hit save. Awesome. So that worked. All right. So that was our validator in place. And let's go ahead and make another move called Jump High. And once again, we will make sure we are now doing our proper formatting, bypassing that validators yelling at us. And there we go. I can pop back into Pokemon. We can come to Pikachu. And we still cannot add him to our thing. So we're going to need to worry about that. But let's come back over here. What do I have to do next? That's ready. I'll go ahead and try to follow those here. Let's do my manage.py.test real quick. We're just going to run our tests, make sure everything is working like we thought it would. And we do have all our tests passing. All right, let's go into the move serializer now. And let's get that. So move app.serializers. .py, and we'll make our move serializer. I lost my formatting. All right. And we have everything. We have ID, name, power, and accuracy getting shown up in here. And now let's go ahead into our Django shell and we'll create a move. So we've done it in the admin. Let's come down here in the shell and do it through the serializer. So Python manage.py shell. We will import that serializer from move apps.serializers. We'll import move serializer. Move serializer is one thing. I'm going to make one called their psychic. So psychic equals move serializer. And we'll pass in some data. So we'll pass it in the data of name is psychic. All right, and then I'm going to sit here and we're going to check our schema, make sure this works. So we can do PS psychic dot is valid. And remember, the is valid is going to check against all of our constraints and our validators and make sure everything works. And it does say true. So now I can save my psychic with dot save. And there we go. If I see psychic dot data, we now see our psychics data. All right. All right, cool. So we got all that going. We're saying this is working. If we try to do this with some bad data, right, and we try to do this like something like this, and then we try to do our psychic that is valid, it's going to tell us not valid. And that's, again, that's our validator coming back into play. All right, so we do have this. We built our validators. We built our schema with our serializers. So now we know everything is working. We have our model, our move model, but we still cannot see our Pokemon, right? Over here, I can't see his moves, right? We've already discussed that. So what we need to do is add the mini relationship. We don't have that yet. Right now, we just have two tables that are independent of each other. And we need to make them dependent on each other. So there's two ways I could do this, right? I told you earlier in the lecture, if I do a mini-to-many relationship, I could put the relationship on either table. I could put it on the move table, or I could put it on the Pokemon table, right? For our use case here, what would make more sense? Where would we want to put the moves relationship? Remember, we put the moves relationship on flight last time because we said the relationship for that was passengers, right? And we put it on the flight table because we're often looking at what passengers are on a flight, right? That's a very common thing that we want to do, more so than we're looking at what flight a person is on. So where should I put this? Should I put this on the Pokemon, or should I put it on the moves to define this mini relationship? I say Pokemon in the chat. Why do we want to put it on the Pokemon?
Because we look at Pokemon more than we look at moves.
Yeah, it's going to be way more often than I'm going to say, hey, what's the moves that this Pokemon has? Then what are all the Pokemon that has this move, right? Like, just makes more sense that way. So we're going to head on over to our Pokemon app. We'll go to our model, and now we can attach this mini-to-many relationship. And this is kind of the whole point of us doing this, is so we can see this mini-to-many relationship. So I'm going to come in here, and I will come in here and write moves equals, and we'll say models.mini to mini field. I before E, except after C, when it sounds like A, and neighbor. All right. Mini to mini field, and we will say, hey, what is the model? Well, that is the move underscore app dot move. That is where we are getting this from. All right. And then our related name. Well, that is what this should be called on our move table. So what should we call our Pokemon table from the move? What do you guys think? Call it whatever we want. But yeah, Simon's saying just call it Pokemon, Kev. Shut up and call it Pokemon. Yeah. So we're gonna call it Pokemon. So when we're on the move table, we can see the Pokemon that belong to it. Now, maybe that question would be a little bit different if Pokemon plural was different, right? If there was Pokemons, maybe I'd say Pokemons, right? Because it would give me back multiple Pokemon as it's a many to many relationship. But Pokemon is plural of Pokemon. All right. Perfect. So that's it. We can come back over here. I can come to my Pokemons. Pokemon app here. Oh, I didn't realize I was in the Pokemon. Okay, there we go. So we got our moves. Jump high. You see we have Psychic now. And we have Spitfire. All right, so I can come back over here to Pokemons. And let's pick Pikachu. Uh-oh. Pokemon moves does not exist. Move app. Pokemon does not exist, is what it's telling me. Move app. Sure the heck it does exist. Oh, I thought I did my migrate, maybe I didn't. Let's just double check. So let's make migrations. Make migrate. Oh, sorry, not make migrate, migrate. All right, let's go back. Let's see if it quits yelling at me now. All right, so there is our Pokemon. And now we can assign it some stuff, right? So now I can give it spit, fire, and give it jump. I can hit save. Oh, now it's yelling at me about this because apparently when we put this in, we didn't have it validated properly. So we'll go ahead and change that. I can give Charmander some stuff. And hit save. And once again, same issue here. We'll make that fire. And we're looking good. All right, so we have now added moves as a mini-to-many relationship to our Pokemon table. All right. I know it was a little confusing because we didn't really build the moves out. We didn't build the serializer out. And we didn't build the tests out. Once again, all the tests are doing is trying to create a Pokemon. Oh, that's the wrong tests. Oops. We're trying to build we're building out the Psychic. We're doing a full clean, make sure it passes its tests. And then we're doing the same thing we did yesterday. We're just checking its type and its ID. And then the second one is we're putting in 4 attack. And remember, we can't put numbers in our move based off of our validator we made for it. And so that should throw an error. And so we're saying that should throw an error. All right. So we ran through building that out, testing our tests, and then all we had to do after we made our model that had all the information we want to do to give it the many-to-many relationship was we headed back to the relationship where we wanted it to live, which was on the Pokemon table. And we ran through and did this right here and made that relationship work. All right. I skipped a lot of steps that I was going to show you, but I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. Any questions? Over any of the material we went over today? All right. You guys broken at this point? Battered and broken?